Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So if you're into P2P cryptocurrency trading and you've been following my channel for a while, the elephant in the room is why I never really talk about Paxful exchange. Now, for those that aren't familiar, outside of the major centralized institutional crypto exchanges of Binance, Bybit, OKX, KuCoin, etc., everything else is a little more Wild West, right? So there's the ones that I always talk about, like local CoinSwap, HODL, local Monero before it was shut down. Out of all of those ones that are in this Wild West domain, the largest one is actually Paxful. Paxful does require KYC, but they're a little unique amongst the crypto exchanges because although it is centralized and it's a KYC platform, it's got a very, very Wild West feel to it, which I'll explain why later on. But it is a very large exchange with a lot of volume. It supports all the major payment methods that you could possibly think of, like there's hundreds of them. But most importantly, they've got really good volume. Now, so the reason why I don't really talk about it so much is because I found it to be a very unsafe and unreliable platform. This caused a lot of frustration in the past, and I just didn't really want new P2P users to get involved in this stuff and share a similar frustration. So I'll give a little bit of a rundown more on Paxful and a bit of its history and why I've come to the conclusion that it's not a good platform to use. But it's been through a number of controversies, which I don't think is unheard of if you run a P2P cryptocurrency exchange, especially a P2P one. Practically every P2P cryptocurrency exchange has been shut down by the feds or something's happened. You know, local Bitcoins was shut down, Agora Desk / local Monero was shut down. It just goes on. And so Paxful is just, another exchange that had a number of problems with the law, mostly relating to, not following AML guidelines. And then there was a feud between the founders of the company. And what happened was the founders split, and one went on to found another exchange called Noons or No Ones. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced. And it's basically the same as Paxful. It almost feels like a fork. If this was some kind of DApp, it's almost entirely the same. But one of the issues with Paxful is something that it's not intentionally Paxful's fault. So Paxful had this really grand vision to help people in the global south, I guess you could say, who were essentially debanked. They wanted to be able to help them directly cross into the blockchain world, even if they didn't have access to a bank account. Now, with peer-to-peer trading, this is something you can do, and this is something I talk a lot about on my channel. Via peer-to-peer trading, you can find all kinds of creative ways to skip going through the centralized banking process or to do things like, avoiding having to provide KYC to buy crypto, which is what everyone in crypto wants. I mean, ideologically, people in crypto don't feel comfortable with giving their personal information. In fact, I've always said this: if you need to give your KYC to buy Bitcoin, you've essentially de-anonymized the anonymous nature of Bitcoin, and that completely defeats the purpose of it, right? So I don't want to belabor this point too much, but for those that don't really see where I'm going with this, basically, if you buy, most of the trading volume of exchanges from fiat to crypto goes through centralized exchanges, right? Now, originally it was done through peer-to-peer trading, but because there's not a whole lot of volume and it's not as efficient, centralized exchanges came in to fulfill this niche. And to do that, they've got to fulfill certain, AML, KYC regulations. So everyone that buys Bitcoin has to go through this KYC process. That's where they, you have to show your passport, driver's license, all other personal information. So this has opened up a level of compromise because now the exchange itself knows who you are, how much Bitcoin you have, et cetera, right? But to then stay compliant to various countries and stuff like that, it's then possible that the government can then have that information. In fact, they have a right to take that information. If you're accused of anything, they can go to the exchange and request that information, right? So now the government can theoretically know that you have Bitcoin and stuff like that. And especially if you're using a bank transfer, you send funds from your bank to the exchange, the bank now knows that you own cryptocurrency, right? So it's an incredibly transparent process in a bad way, right? So the bank knows that you own crypto because it's in your bank details. You sent to Binance, right? The government potentially or the exchange knows you have Bitcoin, and if there's ever a database breach or there's hackers, then malevolent bad actors will then know you have crypto, and then you've got the government who can then get involved and know you have crypto, and then every three-letter agency from the Internal Revenue Services to the CIA, if you're really paranoid about that, whoever else, everyone basically knows you've got Bitcoin. You might as well just go to the rooftops and shout out how much money, how much crypto you've got, where you store it. So it completely destroys the point of crypto, right? So sorry to go on a rant, but it's part of the reason why I'm very passionate about peer-to-peer trading, because I think it's important to have ways to reduce our reliance on centralized financial systems, because as institutions get more and more involved in Bitcoin, it's actually hurting the original principles of what Bitcoin was founded on. So then you've got something like Paxful, which is a centralized exchange, which is already not a great thing, but I'm not inherently against centralized exchanges, and I'm not even inherently against some of the KYC measures. But what Paxful has done is that they wanted to go to a particular kind of audience and do their marketing there. They wanted to market to a particular audience, and these were people in the global south, and very particularly Africa, right? And anyone that has dealt with Africans when it comes to peer-to-peer trading knows that they are terrible, terrible, terrible people to trade with, right? The vast majority of scams, when it comes to crypto scams, or even all these other things aren't specifically related to crypto, but just scams in general, right? Telephone calling scams, romance scams. I mean, you name it. Africa is just the anus hole of where all this shit comes from. I know India gets a bad rap, but in my personal experience, I guess these Africans are just far more crypto savvy than India. I don't really know exactly how it is with India. I know they deal with this stuff, but I don't really encounter them, right? But Paxful had a really noble notion of trying to, reach out to the global south, the people that had been left behind, people that don't have bank accounts, and through Bitcoin, they can access this international remittance system, right? Which is, it's really good. Bitcoin's got some really great values, and Paxful wanted to be able to reach these people. The only problem is that when they focused on this market, then they actually started using the platform, and all the problems associated with them came onto the platform. So I want to give you an analogy. Imagine you're in a clean, safe neighborhood where there's no crime. People don't lock the doors in their house. They don't lock the doors in their crime. One assumption you could make about this scenario is that the police do a really good job at protecting the citizens. The police are busy round the clock taking calls, protecting the citizens. But the reality is, in societies like this, the police aren't really that busy. They're probably chasing up people that didn't pay their library, sorry, didn't return their library books on time, right? And the reason why is because a safe society is usually self-regulated. It's a high-trust society. There's something culturally about that society where criminal activity is just not in the minds of the average person. Therefore, the society is safe, right? It's not just about the sheriff in town, right? So the reverse is true. You can have the best police force in town, but if naturally people are thinking about scamming and doing bad things, you're not going to be able to suppress that, right? So that's what Paxful is. It's coalesced a community of people that are naturally, they're just not good citizens. I'll put it to you like that. If the majority of your user base is from West Africa, so of course Nigeria, the biggest culprits, Nigerians are the absolute worst to deal with. Then you've got Ghanaians, and then even the East Africans, which are not as bad, but even still terrible to deal with. I'm talking Kenyans, Ethiopians, and all the other various countries, Mozambique, whatever. They could have the best moderating team, but the sirens are on around the clock. People are getting scammed left and right. They're having to moderate disputes constantly. And as a result, it's just not a safe platform. So I can't recommend it to my audience because many people aren't really don't have like a particular street smarts for dealing with these kinds of individuals who do this like a full-time job. So I just don't want them to get scammed. Now, the reason why I feel comfortable with, say, like local coin swap or hodl hodl as a counterexample is, one thing that's interesting is that when I deal on these exchanges, whenever there is a dispute, I'm only ever dealing with one mod. There's only ever one dispute person running, dealing with this stuff, right? And the reason why they can afford to have only one as opposed to having a team of 50, like on Paxful and Noons, they have like 50 round-the-clock moderating staff. The reason why they can have just one is just because of the clientele. Like most of the people, I just opened up local CoinSwap, I clicked on buy. The top offers are like United States, United States, United States, United States. And then you've got a bunch from the UK and, all Western countries, developed countries. A lot of the scams are coming there, so as a result, it just tends to be safer on these platforms where there just aren't a bunch of Nigerians and Ghanaians, which are terrible people to deal with online. They're just so frustrating. Even the ones that aren't scammers, to be honest, are very frustrating. The same thing as hodl hodl. A lot of Europeans are on here, so you just don't really get the same kind of frustrations and headaches, right? Now, I want to take this a little bit of a step further, and I can't prove what I'm about to say, but a lot of people have said similar things, and I suspect, having used Paxful for a while, that there are a lot of moderators that are essentially in cahoots with scammers. So the problem with Paxful is, so they've focused a lot of their marketing in Africa, right? Then they've set up banking infrastructure in Africa. They've set up LLCs in Africa, right? They've really so if you extend that further, that also means they've got teams in Africa. The people that work for them are also in Africa. Not everybody. I know like most crypto companies, they're spread throughout the world in every continent, but a lot of people doing the nitty gritty stuff, a lot of them are in Africa, right? So a lot of the mod team, I imagine, in Africa, and the mods are the most important linchpin of any P2P cryptocurrency exchange, right? Because for the most part, dealing with people is very easy on these exchanges, right? But the only reason why it can be considered safe is because there's a uninterested third party that's going to regulate disputes between the users if it ever comes to that. And my concern is that I think a lot of these mods are essentially corrupted. And I know this because I've had a number of trades where I was obviously getting scammed and the other person couldn't provide any proof that they were, they couldn't provide any screenshots. There was no proof that they were actually not scamming me, and I was getting scammed. It was really obvious. If this had happened on any other exchange, it would have been resolved in my favor almost immediately. But I've lost a number of disputes, and I've never lost a bad dispute, like a dispute where I was getting scammed on another platform like hodl hodl, local coin swap, even local Monero. But it's happened a number of times on Paxful, and I'm certainly not the only one. If you just go to Google, type in Paxful Reddit scam, Paxful scams, stay away. Be aware that there are fake users that get scammed, got scammed. And a lot of the time, if you read these things, they'll say like, I provide all of this evidence, and the moderator sided with the person. And I've come to the conclusion that I really believe that, like, look, if you've got 50 mods working around the clock, that, you don't know them that well. Like, I'm talking about the corporate. They don't know these mods that deeply. They're not in that close contact with them. They're probably just hired on the spot. And they're also like probably based in Nigeria or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's not that hard to come to the conclusion. A lot of these people are corrupt, right? I mean, they come from corrupt countries. They're dealing with corrupt people, other people in Africa. I don't see how this is any different to if you were just to go to some marketplace in Nairobi, some open-aired marketplace, and some guy tries to do you dirty in person, right? And the police come, and they're also corrupted and bribed. Like, it's just basically that whole dynamic just transferred onto a P2P cryptocurrency exchange, right? Which I think sucks. If you also just go to the Paxful page, like all of them are, it's always some bad thing, right? I mean, obviously some of the people's own mistakes. Okay, this person sent USDT to the wrong network. What else? I can't withdraw my funds. What else? Account frozen. Paxful account is restricted. And one of the reasons why I don't use it, because I've got a lot of complaints with a lot of cryptocurrency exchanges, but I'll still generally use them. The reason why I don't use Paxful at all is because my account actually got banned, and I got no reason for it. In fact, I got scammed one time. I lost a dispute to a scammer, and then my account got banned, and then it just said, for TOS violations, didn't provide any further information. I emailed everybody that I could, and they're like, oh, no, there's nothing we can do about it. And this has never happened in any other exchange. So it seems that, like, it's they help people that are scammers, but at the same time, they don't properly help people that get scammed. So I just think it's not good, and that's why I never really recommend Paxful. So if you want some alternatives to Paxful, you can try Noons. Noons is the thing that I mentioned before, where there was kind of like a split in the company, and one of the founders went off and created his own exchange. And Noons is very, very similar to Paxful. The only difference is that I can say is from personal experience, I just haven't had as many bad experiences, right? The reason why you might want to use Noons is because one of the benefits of Paxful is that there are a lot of these payment methods, particularly in Africa, that just aren't really as common on like these other exchanges where the main clientele are like European or American, right? So like if I go to Paxful, the top offers are M-Pesa, Vodafone Cash Payment, what else? Mobile Pay, Gcash, like, that's Philippines, MTN, Money Transfer. So the top offers are like these more niche payment systems in, Africa, but not just Africa, Latin America, the global south, right? Whereas I just don't see these much on HODL. So if you use a more niche kind of payment method in we'll just say in a more global south country, or if you're not having success finding a payment method on one of the other crypto exchanges that I recommend, then that's where Paxful is good. And for the aforementioned reasons, I still don't recommend Paxful. So that's where Noons comes in. So if you want to check that out, you can use my referral link in the description down below. But, the number one award goes to local CoinSwap. I've never lost a dispute, because I'm not a scammer, obviously. But, I've never had one that went against my favor where a scammer got the best of me. In fact, I never really find any scammers. I mean, there are still some there, but it's not to the time-wasting degree you would experience on Paxful, where, like, it feels like sometimes, depending on the day, like 2 out of 3 trades that are open to some scammer, right? It's a huge amount of time wasted, even if you're not worried about losing your money. Local CoinSwap, it's extremely rare. I mean, almost most people, like 9 out of 10 people, are generally good actors. Same on HODL, where I'd say it's even better. There's even fewer scammers on here. So both of these exchanges have some of the things that Paxful don't, so there's no KYC, non-custodial as well. So if the exchange goes belly up, you aren't going to lose all your money. And there's a good community. It's a high trust community where people just want to get the job done. They just want to do their trade. They're not trying to play some games and stuff like that. So I really recommend local CoinSwap and HODL. I think they are the best exchanges right now if you're looking for this particular kind of thing. And there are a few others I can recommend if you want to check them out in the referral link in the description below. I also recommend one called Bitpapa because it's one of the few exchanges that still allows for P2P trading in Monero, after local Monero shutdowns. So you might want to check that out. And you can also check out BitValve. That's another exchange that you can check out. So thanks a lot for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you next time.